for hanging in there with us for this last topic, a very important one, and I can tell by your being here at the end of a Saturday. You could have been anywhere, but you're here wanting to talk about poverty, wanting to figure out what you can do and how you can help. And so thank you so much for being here. And thank you also to my fellow panelists, Mayor Nutter and Chekemma. Thank you for both being here. I want to just get right into it because I know we don't have a lot of time, but you know, Erica mentioned, you know, here we are kind of 50 years after, you know, the Reverend Martin Luther King's Poor People's Campaign. You know, just a few years earlier, Lyndon B. Johnson had started the war on poverty. But you know, today, you know, so much of the conversation is around things like personal responsibility or, you know, entitlements or, you know, what role the government should have in really helping the millions of Americans who are living in poverty. And so I want to start by asking both of you about, you know, what the public perception around poverty is and how those perceptions are really keeping the issue from being adequately addressed. Mayor Nutter, we'll start with you.
Errin, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, certainly, to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. We greatly appreciate you being here, the 5th arena. We're the 5th largest city in America, and we're honored that you would pick Philadelphia. You know, it's a mixed story. I think we first have to acknowledge that there's certainly been some amount of progress in the last 50 years. I would consider myself, I guess, kind of a child of, or a beneficiary of the civil rights movement. I was 11 years old when Dr. King was killed, 10 turning 11. So, you know, I was not out on the front lines, but I'm certainly a beneficiary of much of his work and Malcolm X and so many, many others that drove change here in the United States of America. I think the challenge is these efforts have to be sustained. You know, as you were doing that intro, I was thinking about, you know, you see on TV like big, large field races, athletic event races, and you know, there's usually a group that goes out early on, and often you see it kind of thinning, and then there's a whole other big group further back in the race. And so many folks have kind of broken through, or they're leading the pack, but there's a whole bunch of people, and Erica did, as a part of her intro, at least here in Philadelphia, 25.7% of our population is still in poverty. We've had a poverty rate over 20% for more than 30 years. So it's intergenerational. It is a ton of folks locked in deep poverty and just can't see any way out in their life circumstance and situation. So some progress, a whole lot more work to do, and I think there are some examples either here or in other places of some best practices that we should be talking about.
When you ask the question, what does the face of poverty look like? And hello, everyone. Look at my face. I grew up in poverty. I have often talked to people and said I didn't know that it was poverty. I learned that much later, to be able to intellectualize the experiences of lack a lot later. And so the face of poverty looks like young people who are experiencing different levels of trauma and barriers every day, but they experience that like it is the norm. And so for me, I grew up in Brooklyn. My parents were 15 and 16 years old. Fortunately, I had interveners. My grandmother was an intervener. She said, "You don't know how to take care of a child. Bring her back here." So I moved around the corner with my mother in 5th grade. I remember one day I was 5 years old in kindergarten. I remember one day I went to school, and when I came home from school, everything got packed up and I went back to my grandmother's house. Another intervener was my 2nd grade teacher, who, you know, beyond what my family could offer me, gave me a sense of excellence and pride and set standards. So she never interacted with me like I was the face of poverty. She interacted with me like I was the potential that she saw in me. And I think that that's a huge barrier that we have as Americans have to get over. We can't continue to look at those facing poverty as a source of lack. They are endowed with skills, potentials, and abilities, and there are real barriers and concerns that face them. That's the thing we have to address. But the people themselves, the who we're talking about, they are equally capable of contributing and moving our society forward. It's an economic loss for us when we consistently make policy, make practice decisions, make political decisions that are not in our best interest because of fear, because we don't want to distribute power differently, because we don't want to have real conversations about what it takes to disrupt that norm. But that's, I think, the thing that we have to change individually and collectively.
Errin, I want to go back to the other part of your question was about this face of poverty, and Chekemma, as she would, went right into it. In office, now out of office, you know, for whatever reason, the face of poverty and the reasons for it often change based on the color of the person who we're talking about. So in some parts of the media and other commentators and certainly some political folks, you know, black and brown people are poor because they don't want to work and they're lazy. White folks are poor because someone took their job. That job that went to China or Mexico or wherever it went, and because of certain policies, i.e. liberal policies, that's why you don't have a job. But these other folks, they just don't want to work. And, you know, I mean, nothing could be farther from the truth. I mean, black and brown people want to work too. You know, poverty is like really inconvenient. No one wants to be poor. No one wants to be poor, right? And given the opportunity, more and more of our folks would work if they had that chance. And so how that gets portrayed in the media and or by speeches by different people, you know, the idea that somehow, you know, cutting the SNAP program only, you know, is an effort to, you know, fight fraud and abuse by black and brown people when, you know, by the numbers, you know, there are a whole lot of white folks who are on SNAP.
Right, and I want to get into some of those realities because I do think, you know, you bring up an important point, both of you bring up important points about the relationship really between race and poverty. Because there is a relationship, right? But that intersection is often misrepresented, frankly, and is more based in perception than reality a lot of times. And so, Chekemma, I'm wondering if there's anything you want to add to that conversation about the realities of race and poverty that people are missing or misrepresenting that are hindering our ability to address the issue as we should.
I really think that Mayor Nutter said it eloquently, which is what he illustrated was that there are acceptable reasons lended to some and blame lended to others. At the end of the day, if we're all focused on resolving the challenge, how important is the contributing reason except to help you develop the solution? So what we're really talking about is perception and judgment and worth and value, right? And we don't think you're valuable, so therefore we ascribe blame to you for your circumstances, and we think you, others, are valuable. And that, I think, is at the heart of American racism, to be quite honest with you. And we know that this is a part of our sullied history, and I think we have to own as we move forward that what we're trying to solve is the benefit for all, so let's actually focus on solving it. And if all benefit, that's great. And the reality is the solutions are not the same. And that's the point of equity, right? If we all want to run the race, but if I don't have feet and I actually need prosthetics to run, you should give me prosthetics to run. But start the race and let's all run the race. I'm not asking you to change the race. I'm not asking you to change the standards. I'm asking you to be real about what it takes for me to participate. And the other thing that I would like to add, because we don't often talk about this, is the value of social capital. So what education did for me was it gave me access to a different level of social capital that had I not had those experiences, adults who believed in me, and that's what we're trying to do at the Philadelphia Youth Network, is give young people access to social capital and skill building ideas and skill building experiences, and adults who will help push them along the way, because they may not have access to that. And that access is a difference maker.
Yeah, and I want to talk about specifically that for both of you, your role obviously in the public sector, Mayor, but then also your role with the Philadelphia Youth Network. How is it that you all have been able to affect change as it pertains to poverty in your respective roles? Because they are very different, right? But you are both trying to make change in the city around the issue of poverty.
Well, yeah, I hear you. So, but we worked very closely together. I've been known for some goal setting from time to time, and some of that goal setting was holding the goal in my mind until I publicly announced it. And for the people responsible for effectuating those goals would hear about it for the first time while they were in the audience. And so at some event a bunch of years ago, I announced that our new goal for summer jobs was 10,000 summer jobs. And I think the most we had done was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. And so there were a few people in the audience who were kind of surprised.
Doubling that in one summer.
Right, since it was their responsibility to do it. But you know, if you don't set goals, even if they're a little bit of a stretch, then, I mean, where are you going? How do you measure yourself? You know, you might fall a little short, but setting a goal of 10,000, we'd only done 5 or 6, and if we got to 8,500, and it was better, right? So I was trying to drive the organization. Now, the fact of the matter is that we actually did get 10,000 jobs, and did a lot of things to make that happen. Not me, tons of other people. This is not about me. But it was about goal setting, and having Chekemma as a partner in PYN and its history and relationship, and I mean, we had to help employers understand that this is not about charity. Love it that you think it's in the kindness of your heart. For me, what it was about was a work experience and public safety, because our young people were building skills and they were safer in those environments every day, being around caring adults, than hanging out on the street. And they're going to make a little money, which, you know, it's not like, I mean, love young people, but I mean, it wasn't like they were putting the money in their 401k. I mean, they're going to spend that money. So it's actually going into the economy of the city, and you're, right, they're getting their stuff and you're making money, and like life goes on. And most of those summers, violent crime involving young people in Philadelphia went down. Yeah. But it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Well, and to give you an example of, you said we have different roles and how do we work together. He's right, he made an announcement, a proclamation of sorts, and I was a newly appointed president and CEO, so I don't know how many people were shocked. I definitely was shocked, but I took it as challenge and game on, and I didn't feel like I was alone. And so I was a younger executive and a little naive, but I felt like if my mayor could be bold, so could I. And so I remember he and I were at an event, he had done some work, and they were giving us a check, and we were chugging towards the 10,000, and I said to him, I need 5 $1 million moments. My team lost their breath because they were like, did you just go up to the mayor and tell? And I was thinking to myself, well, he just announced to the world a couple weeks ago we're doing 10,000. Seems like I should be able to go to him and tell him what I need to do that. And not once, not ever, did he turn his back on trying to get us to that goal. And I said, I also take 10, $500,000 moments. We can break that down any way you want, but in order to get to that goal, here's what we're gonna need. And what the partnership did for me as a leader was to remember that our young people were worth it, and whatever fight we had ahead. And then we had several fights ahead, including other political fights when there was no state budget at all, and not once was I in that fight alone. I mean, there were days when I talked to his people every single day, and then I'd get a text message from him after, I know you talked to so-and-so and so, I'm making a phone call tomorrow, you'll have the, and things moved. And that's not a luxury that everybody has, but when you talk about playing different roles, he set the goal because it was valuable for our city and for our young people, and it was an economic imperative, but he didn't just set the goal and walk away, and that I think is about how you lead and what's motivated, and that's the way that the sectors can play very strategically. I'm not in government, but I can deliver the service. I can't do that alone.
Well, what
never let me do it alone.
And that's what I hear from both of you. I hear, leadership, collaboration, teamwork, and bold ideas, right? I mean, that's what it took to make the Poor People's Campaign come together. That's what it took when the war on poverty was happening. Like, you need those things to really be able to address poverty in the way that it needs to be addressed, right? So, I want to kind of hit a lightning round here because I know we're getting close. I want you to both quickly talk about the most important thing you've learned doing this work, and misconceptions you've had in the beginning, and then the biggest obstacle you think there is to fighting poverty today.
The most important thing I've learned is that resistance is a stage of change. When I started this work, I interpreted resistance as the person did not agree, they didn't like the idea, they didn't want the same outcome that I wanted. But the reality is, once I tried to neutralize that, because that will lead you down a path that gets you nothing done, to be honest with you. And so if resistance is just a stage in change, then my focus is, how do I decrease the time of resistance? Not avoid it, not assume that it means anything other than, in order to get to change, there will be resistance, and it's my job as a leader to figure out how to fight through that.
I think the biggest lesson learned was that the only limits are the ones that we place on ourselves. It's really great to have 100 people following you wherever it is that you're going to go, but to be honest with you, I'd take 10 fully, absolutely, totally, no question about it, ride or die, 10 people, and let the other 90 sit around and talk to each other about whatever it is they want to talk about. I want to move. I want to get something done. I don't have time to be bullshitting around with people who just want to talk.
Right. And so then you've got an audience full of people sitting here, they care about poverty, maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by the issue, want to know how they can get involved. What is the next step, the smartest next step that they can take when they walk out of here? If they want to address poverty, what advice would you have for them in making that smart next step on this issue?
Well, I know this is a national crowd and certainly a group and the folks who are assembled. But whether you're here in Philly or wherever you may be, I think the first thing I'd try to figure out is, what's the plan back home to fight the issue of poverty? What is it? Comprehensive? Is it holistic? Are all of the right people at the table trying to take action? And then what are you going to do individually? Are you at the table, not at the table? Are you working inside? Are you working outside? What is your personal commitment to this issue and to driving other people? We can't escape the reality that there are elections every 6 months and somebody's always running for something. People make decisions every day that affect folks' lives, and so I know this is a crowd. I'm sure that everyone in this room votes, but you've got friends, neighbors, maybe family members who either don't or are so questioning, does it matter? We're seeing every day that it actually does matter, and so voting is still the ultimate relief valve to some of the ills that we face.
In addition to voting, which I think is super important, I think also be informed. Nothing combats ignorance like knowledge. And if you don't know that it is not truth, you're either spreading it when you hit send, retweet. Be informed before you put your voice out there. And the other thing I would say is, how can I become an accelerator? One of the commitments that I made is to invest in the things that I love, whether that mean my time, my talent, or my treasure, but my time and my talent, and certainly my resources, my money. There are those out there whose ground game, whose national game is much more sophisticated than what you can do individually, but you can contribute to those things. And I think that that's a really important way to not just think about poverty, but be a force for change in addressing poverty.
And do we have any last message that you want to leave the audience with here as it pertains to the issue of poverty and how they should be fighting it, and where we go from here, the vision for the future on this issue?
You know, I think this phrase mostly came out of the tragedy of 9/11 and our, deep need to feel secure. But I think it pertains to just about everything we do, which is that, if you see something, say something. If you see something that is not right or is just wrong, say something. Don't just let it sit there. Don't just assume somebody else is going to do something. While we're waiting for the next person to do whatever we want the next person to do, the honest part of this is you should be doing it yourself. No one's going to save us from ourselves but ourselves. Keep up the fight and don't get distracted. Don't get dismayed. I think none saying it better than President Obama. We've been, in the whole history of this country, we've been through worse and have come out victorious on the other side. And this is a phase in the United States of America, and we will get through this strongly.
Well, I certainly think that this was a good note to end the Arena Summit on, because the solution to poverty, I think, really is love plus action. So I want to thank our panelists, Mayor Michael Nutter, former mayor of the city of Philadelphia, and Chekemma Fulmore-Townsend, president and CEO of the Philadelphia News Network. I'm Errin Hainswack, and I'm with the Associated Press. Thank you guys so much for your attention, and have a great weekend.